Hello there, boys and girls, and welcome back to Little House Story Corner. Today we're going to be finishing up our mini-series within our Bible series all about the Exodus. So today we are going to see how the Israelites celebrated their very first Passover, and Pharaoh finally let the Hebrew people go. But then he changes his mind and tries to chase after them, and we are going to see God do a big miracle for his people. So every year when Passover comes and we celebrate the feast, we do it knowing in our hearts that Jesus is our Messiah. He is the perfect Passover lamb. And he tells us in the Bible every year at the Passover to take the cup and eat some unleavened bread to remember that he died for us to give us the gift of eternal life. And we're supposed to do this every single year until he comes back for us again. Now, sometimes we can have yuckies in our heart, and those yuckies are called sin. Apart from Jesus, we can have lots of yuckies in our heart. And the Bible calls those old yuckies old leaven. I bet you guys can say that really loud. I know you are so good at this. So on the count of 3, I want to hear you guys say old leaven. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Old leaven.
I knew it. You guys are so good at this. The Bible tells us that every year at Passover that we're supposed to look in our hearts and see if there's any yuckies in there that we need to get rid of. The way we can do this is we can pray and we can ask God to show us if there's any sin, any of those yuckies in our heart that he wants us to get out. And it's very important to remember that we can't get the yuckies out of our heart all by ourselves. We need God to help us. And we remember that Jesus died to give us the gift of eternal life, but to also help us have victory over that sin, over those yuckies, so that we can get them out of our heart and we can do the right thing. So at the next Passover, I want you to think all about how Jesus died for you because he loves you so very much and wants to spend forever with you. And pray to God, ask him to help you get all of those yuckies out of your heart. All right, friends, now we are going to read the story all about the very first Passover and a big miracle of God. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt,
"This month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell all the congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month every man shall take a lamb according to their father's house, a lamb for a household. Your lamb shall be without blemish, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of this month, when the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lambs at twilight. Then they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat. They shall eat the flesh that night, roasted on the fire, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs they shall eat it. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations, as a statute forever. You shall keep it as a feast."
Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them,
"Go and select lambs for yourself according to your clans, and kill the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of the hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning, for the Lord will pass through to strike the Egyptians. And when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you. You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your sons forever. And when you come to the land that the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall keep this service. And when your children say to you, "What do you mean by this service?" you shall say, "It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, for he passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians, but spared our houses."
And the people bowed their heads and worshipped. And the people of Israel went and did so, as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. Then he summoned Moses and Aaron by night and said,
Up, go out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel, and go, serve the Lord, as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also.
The time that the people of Israel lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 430 years, on that very day, all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It was a night of watching by the Lord, to bring them out of the land of Egypt. So this same night is a night of watching, kept to the Lord by all the people of Israel throughout their generations. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed towards the people, and they said,
What is this we have done, that we have let Israel go from serving us?
So he made ready his chariot and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt with officers all over them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, and his horsemen, and his army, and overtook them and camped at the sea, by Pi-hahiroth, and in front of Baal-zephon. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly. And the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses,
Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Is this not what we said to you in Egypt? Leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians. For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness.
and Moses said to the people,
Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent.
The Lord said to Moses,
Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, so that they shall go in after them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his hosts, his chariots, and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen.
Then the angel of God, who was going before the host of Israel, moved and went behind them. And the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them, on their right hand and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them into the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning watch, the Lord in the pillar of fire and of cloud looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw the Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said,
Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians.
Then the Lord said to Moses,
Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen.
So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. Of all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea, not one of them remained. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians. So the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord, and in his servant Moses. So we wanted to thank you, boys and girls, so much for coming back again to Little House Story Corner. The next video, we will be returning to our Little House on the Prairie reading collection, where the Ingalls family is going to leave the little house in the big woods and head out west towards their new life on the prairie. So make sure that you come back to the channel to check for the new video coming soon. And thank you to our patrons over on Patreon for helping make this possible. We appreciate you guys from the bottom of our hearts. If you are enjoying Story Corner for your kids and would like to consider partnering with us, we will leave those links in the description box below. And if you are the adult in charge and you would consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video, we would appreciate that so much as well. All right, friends, thank you so much again, as always, for coming back to Little House Story Corner. And the good Lord willing, I will see all of you back here on the next one. See you then. Bye, friends.